Now, we're working our way through what I believe are the most important solo drills for you as a developing athlete in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. We've gone over what I think are the most important general body movements associated with the sport, and we've demonstrated how they pertain to the realistic situation of a resisting opponent. So we've shown the move and then shown the application. Now I want to look at a special topic for solo training. That's the idea of training your spine. Always remember, of course, human beings are classified as vertebrates. Okay, the central feature of our body is that of a skull attached to a spine, and everything else is attached to that. Your training has to reflect that fundamental physiological fact about human beings. And the training of the spine is a very important part of your development in the sport. Understand that there are two major movements associated with your spine. These are rounding movements, where the spine rounds out, like so. I would say the majority of the sport of Jiu-Jitsu is spent in the rounded position, okay? Almost every form of guard position, almost every form of turtle position involves a rounded spine like so. This stands in contrast with an arched spine, okay? Shoulders back, and a pronounced arch in the spine like so. And so the sport of Jiu-Jitsu asks us to go between rounded spine and arched spine. I think it's fair to say the majority of our time in Jiu-Jitsu is spent in rounded spine, but let's not underplay the value of an arched spine. Almost all of the major submission holds of the sport finish in an arched position, arm locks, etc. So arching is even though it's less of your time is spent in those positions, the times when you need it are important times. So let's look at how we can train our spine for efficiency in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Some simple drills that you can do on a daily basis as warm-ups, as part of your training program when you go in solo. Obviously, the two elements we need to work are the arching and rounding aspects. Understand that the two major bending points of the spine will always be the ends of the spine. These occur close to the neck and close to the lower back. So those are going to be the primary focus of your rounding and arching program. Let's start off with the idea of rounding of the spine, since this is probably the more common situation you'll find yourself in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. The drill which I want you to work with is a kind of a round-the-world drill, where we just go in circles with a rounded spine. We're going to start off in a seated position just like so, and cross our legs, and from here we're going to come up into an inverted position, just like so. Now from here, I'm going to separate my legs and turn around my body just like so. From here, we just learn to move in a comfortable circle. Here, I'm continuously going over my right shoulder, tracing out a circle along the mat. Notice that when we do this, it starts with a swishering of our legs onto one shoulder, across the scapula to the other shoulder. A slight split of the legs, and we trace out a circle on the mat. Once you've gone in one direction comfortably, then we practice the skill of going in the opposite direction. And the movement is always the same. As you gain in skill, I want you to start using your arms less and less. And what you're going to find is that some degree of neck strength is required to complete the drill. So when you first start off, you'll be using your hands on the mat to give you stability. But ultimately, I want you to work with no hands, so that you're forced to engage the neck muscles as well as the muscles of the lower back. In this way, you develop a certain degree of suppleness in the neck, and the lower back, which is going to be extremely useful in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Almost all of the movements involved in the sport from bottom position require that rounding of the spine, okay? And that rounding of the spine is what's going to make you effective at bearing weight underneath an opponent. Now, that was the circular drill. Now the linear drill for rounding of the spine. In the linear drill, we start like so. Instead of me tipping from one side to the other, we tip straight back, as though our spine were the shape of a banana or a rocking chair. We use our legs to carry our weight over our head. So my legs do this motion. As I round my spine more and more, my legs will carry me up and down, up and down. When you get comfortable, you can go from the circular drill to the linear drill. When you learn to round out your spine like this, much of the bottom position game, which is based on the idea of inversion and elevation, becomes second nature to you. It's a great way to try and train the most important element of your spine control, the ability to round your spine and let your spine bear weight. Now, with regards arching of the spine, a very important drill here is the side-to-side bridging drill. We're going to start off supine, just like so, and hit our bridges with repetition the same way we saw them earlier in this video. Everything starts with the eyes. We look overhead, we come up, and from here we walk and walk and walk until we come up to our knees. Then from here we come back down and we bridge up in the opposite direction. You'll notice that as we perform this drill, we turn 90 degrees. So if I start off facing the camera, like so, I'm going to finish perpendicular to my original angle, lined up with my shoulder line. So here we are. Don't stop until your two knees are on the floor. A common mistake is people just bridge like this. You're training yourself to stop when the movement hasn't yet been completed. Remember, the move isn't over until your chest down to the floor. Only then have you turned your opponent successfully over. So make sure you finish on your two knees. Don't finish on your stomach. Nobody is athletic in this position. We need to be able to come up and over. Notice that I have two legs. Initially, it's my right leg which is providing the drive. But then I have to transfer to my left leg. Then it's my left leg that provides the initial drive and passes to the right leg. And in this way, while holding the arch, we develop the arching potential of the human spine. The last element of the human spine that I want you working is the ability to push with your head, which becomes extremely useful in half guard passing, open guard passing, north-south pinning. The idea is we're going to put our forehead on the mat. Initially, just our hands and knees will be on the floor. And when you first start off, just practice circling your head side to side, forwards and backwards. You want to slowly increase the amount of weight that your neck bears. Now you're going to have to go at your own pace because you could hurt your neck if you go too quickly. Then from here, when we feel confident, we can bring our knees up off the mat. And when we feel more confident, we we can take our hands to our hamstring. And in this way, you develop good strength to push with your head into your opponent and use your head as part of your attacks, particularly when you're in top position. Now, altogether, these drills gives us a good ability to exploit the potential power of the human spine through rounding, arching, and front bridging. So we start off like so, learning to use the spine in the shape of the bottom of a rocking chair. Then we practice that simple circular drill from side to side. And then strengthening the neck as a pushing instrument used in top position. Training your spine like this on a daily basis will have big benefits for you as a developing student in Jiu-Jitsu. The most important form of strength for the study of Jiu-Jitsu is strength of the muscles that surround the spine. Okay, the muscles of the torso. The human body obviously has a lower body and an upper body, and what connects the two together and makes them work effectively in unison are those crucial core muscles in front and back, which are going to make the unity of your upper body and lower body possible. Perhaps when you watch a beginner's class in Jiu-Jitsu, the things you see exhausted the most are beginners get tired in the stomach and lower back as they try to perform the movements of the sport. So it's important we be strong in this regard. You can watch any given Jiu-Jitsu match, and within a very short period of time, you're going to notice there's a fundamental structure that all good athletes pay attention to. And this is the structure of elbow to knee. The more our elbows and knees are connected, the better we perform. This is true whether we're on our back or when we're in turtle position underneath, prone like so. Things go bad in Jiu-Jitsu when that elbow and knee connection is broken. The further my elbows and knees are apart, the less effective I am in this sport. But the moment we start bringing elbows and knees together, that's when we become effective Jiu-Jitsu players. Okay? So the onus is on us to develop the kind of body in which we can easily keep elbow and knee together for extended periods of time. Now, when it comes to prone positions, the exercise which I often advocate, which helps the development of the core strength required to make you successful at joining elbow and knee together, is crawling. Okay, crawling is a very simple exercise you can do anywhere, which tests your ability to keep elbow and knee together in a prone position. So we're just going to start in what looks like a loose kind of push-up position, and we're going to practice the skill of joining elbow and knee on one side. Then we walk and join elbow and knee on the other side. Elbow and knee are joined, and we walk like so. Then we reverse the direction. So we don't turn around and come back, we just reverse direction. Performing this for even relatively short periods of time will test your ability to keep elbow and knee together and provide an excellent beginner level workout for your core strength. You can make it more advanced by periodically adding the idea of one-legged planks as you perform the move. Say, for example, every fifth step, you could add planks for time in order to test your core a little more rigorously. Now, with regards to being on your back and developing the core strength, which is going to make you successful, I like to use crucifix rolls. In a crucifix roll, I make my body into the shape of a crucifix, just like so. Then from here, we join our feet together and bring our legs up and over the top. We stretch out, we bring our head around the corner and go back in. Done in this way, you develop the front element of the core, which makes for a challenging workout if done for long periods of time. Try to maintain your shoulders on the mat. Try to maintain the form I just demonstrated. These are not crushingly difficult moves, but they're a great way for you to develop the kind of core strength which will enable you to maintain elbow and knee integrity for long periods of time when you're working with a resisting opponent. Thank you for your patience and seeing all these various body movements that we've worked our way through. Now it's time to come to the whole purpose of this video, which is to give you an effective workout which is going to bring up your skill level so that when you return to the mats, you're better than the last time you were there. That's my goal. The way this is going to happen is going to involve you. You are going to have to develop the idea of using visualization and your imagination as you perform the physical movements. We've seen all the physical movements. Once you start to learn those and you're feeling comfortable with them, then it's time to go beyond just using your body to perform the movements and start integrating your mind. The idea is you are going to picture inside your own head a resisting, competitive opponent. That opponent will be performing various moves on you. Those moves will be left to your imagination. You will respond to those moves so that you actually are taking care of two people, your opponent and yourself. By actively engaging your mind in this process, you become much more than just someone who's performing a set of moves. You're becoming a shadow grappler. Just as a good boxer is a great shadow boxer and actively envisions an opponent performing various moves against him and him responding in a split second in an effective fashion, you're going to do the same thing in grappling. What I'm going to suggest to you is that you use time to set your workouts. I like to see students create 3 5-minute rounds. Okay, I generally find once you go beyond 5 minutes, people's minds tend to wander and they just start to go repetitively through the movements. So break them up into rounds. I recommend 5-minute rounds. In between the rounds, I recommend a 1-minute break, but it's not a normal break. You have to perform one of the movements that we saw earlier in the video, which pertain to your core strength. I'm going to recommend crawling and the idea of crucifix rolls. So between rounds, you do 1 minute of either crawling or 1 minute of crucifix rolls. So you're working hard between the rounds. Then you come back to the next round and you go actively with your imaginary opponent and work. What I'm going to do now is just demonstrate some of these ideas to you. I'm going to be talking as I perform them so that I give you, the viewer, a kind of insight into what I'm thinking. Okay. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing that if I were doing my own workout. I would just be silently talking inside my own head. But I'm just going to try and do this so you can pick up on what I'm thinking as I perform the moves. So let's start off. What I would do is there would be a timer, which sounds the beginning of the round. The first thing I do is I imagine, where am I in relation to my opponent? So let's say I've chosen to sit the guard, and I'm walking towards an opponent who's perhaps not the most aggressive guy in the world, and he's moving back and away from me. So I'm scooting in towards my opponent. Suddenly he changes direction and forces me to my back. As he comes around to a given side, I throw a leg up and a frame. And as a result, I'm able to catch my opponent on that side. He goes to the other side, and we practice coming across. He goes over to north-south. We go through, catch, roll, put him back in guard. We return up to a seated position. We're chasing him, going after him. He backs away so far that I decide I'm going to come up to my feet and grapple in standing position. He comes down from my legs. Okay, he gets a powerful grip on my legs and knocks me down to my butt. Comes around behind me. So we have to roll through and put the man back in guard. We return up to seated position. Now I'm down on point. I'm moving aggressively towards this guy now. Again, he's backing up and away, so we move in towards the man. I shoot, I go in on the legs, boom, and we walk the man down to the floor. Now, I get a good opportunity to go across side and pass my training partner's guard. Unfortunately, as I move into the mount, I get bridged up and over and end up in bottom position. So we're pommeling our legs. He's trying to pass, we're trying to pommel. Sit up and forward, and from here I hike, snap my man down to the floor, and spin around behind him. Now we're on the man's back. We roll through, going onto his back. Unfortunately, he turns inside my legs, and he's back inside my closed guard. From here, we go to work, moving out to the side. He goes into a half guard situation, and as a result, I come up into my training partner's legs and take single leg. From single leg, I feel I'm losing the leg, so I hit a quick sit out. Off the sit out, we're back to neutral. I sit back down to guard, and we go to work like so. Now, I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and you guys are going to try and see what kind of problems I'm confronting. So now you have to do the work as the viewer and see what kind of motions we're bringing in here. Now, with 5 minutes gone, I go into crawls. Alternatively, when the minute is expired, we go back into our solo drills. And in this way, you can get 3 5-minute rounds of action, along with excellent core strengthening in between, which will give you a good workout where you're actively engaged mentally and physically. The great question of this video is, how are we going to get you better at Jiu-Jitsu when you're spending time off the mats rather than on the mats? My answer to you comes in 3 different directions. There are 3 directions you must go with your training when you can't access your regular gym, which will make you a better Jiu-Jitsu player. The first is what was the content of this video, the idea that there are certain solo drills, movements, which underlie the actual skills of the sport. For every move in Jiu-Jitsu, there's a set of underlying moves. The better you get at those movements, the better you'll get at the moves themselves. So the first thing you want to do when you find yourself taken away from the mats for whatever reason is work on those fundamental movements of Jiu-Jitsu. We've seen that they're radically different from other combat sports and other sports in general, and that in any given sport, what we call athleticism is relativized to that one domain. The athleticism of one sport generally doesn't carry over well to the athleticism of another sport. The second big thing that you'll want to go on to do is to stay in good physical shape. Deteriorations in strength and flexibility and conditioning overall won't do well when you come back to return to the mats. So I always recommend some kind of body program which focuses upon your strength, your flexibility, and your overall body conditioning. Obviously, this will be allied with some kind of nutritional sense where you're not getting overweight. I'm going to leave this up to you. As a coach, over the years, I've seen more or less every kind of strength and conditioning program, every kind of diet program. In truth, after all these years of observation, what I've found is that different athletes respond better to different programs. There has never been any one strength, conditioning, or diet program which made tangible benefits above and beyond any of the other strength and conditioning programs. So you're going to see great advocates of calisthenic training, gymnastics training, Olympic weightlifting, regular bodybuilding, yoga, etc., etc. You're going to see 1,000 things, kettlebell training. All these fashions have come and gone. What I've noted is that they're all very effective, and I've seen world champions of every kind use every kind, but I've never seen anyone change to a given diet or fitness program and it radically improved their performance far beyond what they were doing previously. Okay, that tends to suggest that they all work pretty well. There's, as I said, no one supplementary program has proven dominant over the others. To give you an example, George St. Pierre, when I first knew him as a developing athlete, he was mostly engaged in bodybuilding training, and he did very well early on in his career with that. Then he switched later in his career to an Olympic weightlifting program, and he did very well with that too. Towards the end of his career, he made a switch towards a more gymnastics-based program, and again, he did very well with that. So what you see is that all 3 programs, very different from each other, all got good results, and you can't really say that any one of those programs got radically better results than the others did. Another student of mine, Gordon Ryan, favors a mostly bodybuilding based approach, and he's gotten amazing results with that. Gary Tonin favors something of a compromise between gymnastics work and Olympic lifting, and he gets great results with that. So really what I can say to you is there's 1,000 different strength and conditioning programs out there. I think over the years I've been coaching, I've seen pretty much all of them, and they all got outstanding results. What really determined their effectiveness is not so much the program themselves as how dedicated the student was to the program. That tended to be more the factor involved in whether they succeeded or failed. But there was never a sense in which you looked at one program and, oh my God, this is making them so much better than they were before. That never really happened. So my advice to you is find one which you're comfortable with, which you enjoy. Because enjoyment is an important part of it. Because if you don't enjoy it, you won't stick with the program. Find something that suits your body well, you're confident works well for you, and stick with that. Okay, but there has to be some kind of program where you're enhancing your strength, conditioning, and flexibility, and your diet is in order so you're not gaining unnecessary weight during the time off. If you can take care of those 4 things in your own way, then that's an important second part of your program. I'm going to come back later in this video with this. There is one exercise which I make all of my students do, regardless of what kind of strength and conditioning program they're on, but I'll show that to you later on in this video. That's the only thing that I do, put my foot down and I make my students do that, but I'll show you that shortly. Now, with regards to the third element, that is the idea of knowledge. Okay, so your first responsibility when you've got time away from the dojo is your solo drills that were the content of this video. Your second is your strength, conditioning, flexibility, and diet program. I leave that one mostly up to you. They're all pretty effective in my experience. And the third program is the development of knowledge. Remember that ultimately the single biggest determining factor in who wins and who loses in Jiu-Jitsu is skill. Skill is embodied knowledge. That's knowledge that you've woven into the movements of your body. Okay? Every skill begins with some kind of knowledge. The best way for you to develop knowledge is typically in the dojo. You have an instructor and he can answer questions in detail and give you a lifetime of knowledge when you're there working with him. But if there's a close second, it's videos. Okay, I strongly urge my students to watch video as much as they can. World champions from past and present. BJJ Fanatics offers instructional videos from some of the greatest players of all time, elite coaching staff, etc., etc. So there's a wealth of knowledge out there. When you can't work on skills, work on knowledge, because knowledge is the precursor to skill. I promise you this, if you can take during that time off, time to work on your movement skills, keep yourself in good physical shape, and increase your knowledge, when it's time to come back to the mats, for whatever reason you were laid off them, you're going to find you're in great shape, you're moving better than you were before, and you have knowledge that you didn't have previously. And as a result, you're going to find there's a period of time when you first come back that the skills come very easily to you. You go through a rapid period of growth, which can be one of the most rewarding parts of your jiu-jitsu training. So again, in summary, at the end of this video, there's 3 things I want you working on whenever you're forced away from the dojo where you normally train. Work on your body movement skills, as outlined in this video. Work on an overall, independent and supplemental physical conditioning program, which keeps your strength, flexibility, weight, etc., where it should be during the time off. And then third, work on increasing your knowledge, because knowledge is the precursor to skill, and skill is the ultimate determinant of who wins and who loses in this sport. The whole idea of this video is to enhance your performance, the same thing it is in all of my videos. If you can stick with that simple 3-step program when you're held off the mats for whatever reason, you're going to find when you come back, there's going to be a rapid phase of growth and performance will go up. I promise you this. This has always been my experience as a coach. The only time I've seen people take extended periods of time off the mat and come back worse than they were before, to a degree what was really noticeable, is when they abandon the sport completely. As long as you keep your body in the game and your mind in the game, you'll come back stronger. But when you just say, let me just take time off and I'll think about it when I come back, that's when you see deterioration. That's when you see people coming back not as good as they were before. I've seen people come back from extended periods of time after terrible surgeries and come back within a very short period of time, get very good again, and in many ways better, just because they worked hard on increasing their knowledge, keeping their body in the best shape they could in the time off, and by working on those supplemental body skills that we saw in this video. Keep with that 3-step program and you'll find you do just fine when it's time to get back to the dojo. You'll remember from earlier in the video, I said that I had seen a great variety of strength and conditioning programs which Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts athletes had used over the years, and that there was never any evidence to suggest that any one of them dominated any of the others. They were all as good as the athlete made them. As long as the athlete was dedicated, stayed with them for a long period of time, they got good results with a wide variety of strength and conditioning programs. So as a general rule, I let the athlete determine which they will choose and then let them be comfortable with that. But there is one exception to that rule. There is one simple exercise which I do insist all of my athletes do on an almost daily basis. This is variations of the simple exercise toes to bar. Essentially, it's a form of leg lift where from a hanging bar, we come up and touch our toes or even ankles or shins to the bar. There are two main variations that I have my students work, and this is something of our daily training. The reason why I insist on this above all other supplemental exercises outside of the gym is because it gets you around the greatest problems that most beginning athletes in Jiu-Jitsu face. When you look at beginning athletes, the two quickest areas in which they become quickly exhausted when they begin their Jiu-Jitsu classes are typically the forearms and the front core. Okay, they will fatigue over time in their whole body, but those are always the first two areas to run into crises. So this exercise absolutely enhances your ability to maintain endurance and strength in those two critical areas, and perhaps even more importantly, it makes you strong in what is absolutely the single most important postural demand of Jiu-Jitsu, which is elbow to knee connection. Okay. The sport will test your ability to maintain knee to elbow connection more than any other. If you're going to fail in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, 90% of the failures are going to come from failure to maintain integrity of knee and elbow position as you grapple with your opponent. Toes to bar is the simplest, easiest way for you to develop the kind of core strength you'll need to endure a hard, rigorous match with a tough opponent and maintain that knee to elbow position, which you'll be required for victory. The movement itself is very simple. Okay, we're going to start with a grip on a bar high enough that your toes won't touch the floor. That's the only prerequisite needed. We're going to come down into a hang. The key idea is we're not going to use any form of momentum to generate the lift. Everything begins with the shoulders coming up just like so. Then from there, I generally recommend you work with a minimum of 5 repetitions. Anything less than 5, and you won't be working the endurance of your forearms enough. If you can go more than 12, you should be doing a more difficult variation of the exercise. So somewhere between 5 and 12 should be your goal. It's a relatively easy exercise to perform. Anyone of even moderate athletic potential should be able to do it. I always recommend when you first start off, start in sets of 5 and build from there. When you try to increase the numbers, don't worry about the numbers so much as the execution. Don't get sloppy. No one cares if you get an extra 2 repetitions if you're swinging with momentum. Focus on a good stationary body and a clean lift of the legs with your legs absolutely straight, coming all the way up. That's the first variation. The second variation is a windshield wiper variation, where we go up once and then go for repetitions from one side to the other. Try to build up to around 10 repetitions left and right. So this would look slightly different. In this case, we're going to go beyond toes to bar and bring our shins to the bar. So from the same dead hang, that side-to-side repetition represents well the idea of elbow to knee connection while moving left and right, which is one of the main demands of the sport. These simple exercises are something you can master in a relatively short time frame. If you feel on your first day that you can't perform the exercises, you would go through easier variations where you bring, for example, your knees to your chest, or you only go up halfway, but your goal in the end is always to go up fully to the bar. Obviously there's a beginning level flexibility. I recommend stretching out so you can touch the back of your hands on the floor. That will make it easier. If you're very tight in the hamstrings, that alone will make it more difficult for you. So over time, your flexibility requirement would be the back of your hands to the mat, and then that simple notion of straight arms. Don't cheat with bent arms. Everything at a dead hang. Then from the hang, just a slight shrug of the shoulders. And everything up to the bar. Again, working with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 12. If you can get 12 to the bar with perfect form, then it's time to move on to a more difficult exercise. This is probably the only supplemental exercise outside of the gym that I insist all of my athletes use. Other than that, I give them carte blanche. They do whatever they want, whatever they feel more comfortable. There's 1,000 different exercise programs out there. All of them I've seen very good results with over time. But this, everyone has to do.